Imagine a world where the internet wasn't born in Silicon Valley but in the Soviet Union. A vast nationwide computer network designed to manage an entire economy in real time. This is the forgotten story of OGAS, a project so ambitious it still echoes in our digital age, forcing us to question how technology, power, and economic control could have been wired together in a very different way. In the early 1960s, in the middle of the Cold War's technological race, Soviet scientists proposed something radical: a digital nervous system for the planned economy. The project was called OGAS, the All-State Automated System for the Gathering and Processing of Information for Accounting, Planning, and Management of the National Economy. At its center stood cyberneticist Viktor Glushkov. He saw OGAS as the dawn of electronic socialism, not the end of central planning, but its upgrade. Computers would calculate and adjust plans with a speed and precision far beyond human capacity. The Soviet economy was drowning in complexity. Information flows exploded faster than the bureaucracy could process them. Glushkov warned that by 1980, the planning apparatus would have to grow dozens of times over just to keep up with the paper. OGAS was his antidote: turn the entire economy into a single, real-time information system. In a state built on control, this was the ultimate expression of power, hardwired into circuits and code. Cybernetics had once been denounced in the USSR as bourgeois pseudoscience. After Stalin, it cautiously returned as a potential tool to modernize planning. In 1959, military engineer Anatoly Kitov proposed what may have been the first design for a national economic computer network. In his famous red letter to Nikita Khrushchev, he suggested that the Ministry of Defense's computer centers, idle at night, could help Gosplan process economic data. The letter was intercepted. Kitov was punished for insubordination, stripped of his posts, and forced out of the army. The first attempt at a Soviet economic network was crushed. But the core idea that computers could coordinate an entire economy refused to die. It simply waited for a new champion. That champion was Viktor Glushkov, a brilliant mathematician and cyberneticist with both technical depth and political instinct. In 1962, he became head of the new Cybernetics Institute in Kiev. From there, he shaped OGAS into a full-scale national project. The official title was long. The ambition behind it was longer. OGAS envisioned a web of computing centers across the Soviet Union, linked in near real time over existing telephone and telegraph lines. In its most ambitious form, the network would envelop the economy like a nervous system. Every factory, every collective farm, every key institution feeding data into a unified grid. Glushkov believed OGAS could move Marxist ideas into a new technological era, truly scientific planning, less constrained by human error and bureaucratic paralysis. OGAS mirrored the Soviet state itself. It was designed as a three-level hierarchy. At the top, a central computing center in Moscow, the brain, aggregating data and issuing commands. Below it, up to 200 regional centers in republic capitals and industrial hubs, processing local information. At the base, up to 20,000 local terminals at factories, farms, and institutions, the sensors and actuators of the system. These nodes would talk over existing telecom lines. The goal wasn't science fiction fiber networks, but a pragmatic upgrade of what already existed, pushed as close as possible to real time. Despite the hierarchy, Glushkov wanted the system to be surprisingly flexible. An authorized user at a plant or ministry could contact the node they needed directly, without wading through layers of human approvals. OGAS aimed to integrate scattered islands of automation into a single information space. Instead of each ministry building its own little digital kingdom, the economy would share one nervous system. In many ways, OGAS was far ahead of its time. It proposed nationwide electronic data banks containing detailed information on enterprises, resources, and population, an early vision of what we now simply call big data. Special mathematical software would process this ocean of data continuously, calculating key indicators, spotting imbalances, and helping planners optimize decisions. It was an early form of algorithmic governance. OGAS also anticipated electronic government. Plans, reports, and many official documents would be digital, available across the network to authorized users, speeding up slow, paper-based procedures. Glushkov pushed further. He proposed a transition to a cashless economy where all payments were handled through electronic accounts inside the system. He called this a system of non-circulating checks, effectively a design for digital money, imagined decades before plastic cards, online banking, or mobile wallets became routine. Inside the Soviet scientific community, people have joked that one day a punch card would run the Kremlin. Behind the joke lay a very real fear. Once the data flows through the machine, whoever controls the machine controls the system. Vision wasn't enough. OGAS smashed into hard limits. Technologically, the USSR had only just entered the computer age. Mainframes were huge, slow, and rare. There simply weren't enough machines or enough trained personnel to blanket a continent-sized economy. The telecom infrastructure wasn't ready either. Long-distance connections relied on analog telephone and telegraph lines, noisy and fragile. Building a dense, reliable network on this base would have been difficult and expensive. The projected cost of OGAS was enormous, on the scale of hundreds of billions of today's dollars. It would have required consistent political backing at the very top. Instead, Glushkov's project ran into classic human resistance. Ministries feared losing control over their data and their levers of power. A unified network looked like a machine that could rewire the hierarchy above their heads. The Ministry of Finance, led by Vasily Garbuzov, became one of the fiercest opponents. He saw OGAS as a direct threat to his ministry's traditional role and fought it relentlessly. On October 1, 1970, the Soviet leadership met in the Kremlin to decide OGAS's future. Glushkov presented the project to the Politburo. He argued that the network had to be launched immediately, warning that by the late 1970s, the economy would run into serious trouble without systemic automation. But on this crucial day, his main political allies were absent. Premier Alexei Kosygin and General Secretary Leonid Brezhnev, who had earlier shown interest in reform, did not attend. Instead, Finance Minister Garbuzov took the floor. Skeptical and dismissive, he argued that computers should be used for more practical tasks. According to later accounts, he joked that it would be better to buy computers to play music to chickens in poultry farms, to increase egg production, than to build a utopian system to control the entire economy. At the 24th Party Congress in 1971, OGAS was never formally endorsed. Only local automated control systems were approved for expansion. The Soviet Union's grand cybernetic project was placed on indefinite hold. OGAS, as a single coherent network, never materialized. But the need for automation didn't vanish. Throughout the 1970s, ministries and large enterprises rolled out their own automated control systems. Factory-level ACS, sectoral databases, ministerial computer centers. Glushkov's team helped implement dozens of such projects. Yet these systems remained isolated. Each ministry built its own incompatible digital island, with its own standards and hardware. There was no unified economic map, only a mosaic of local solutions. By the late 1970s, Glushkov's group created an automated system for planning calculations, a partial implementation of OGAS logic that helped compute some plan indicators. In the early 1980s, they even prepared a full technical design for OGAS, hoping a new leadership might revive it. It never happened. Political energy drained away, reforms stalled, and the economy slid into stagnation. Instead of a single nervous system, the USSR ended up with hundreds of disconnected networks. They collected data, but could not assemble a coherent, real-time picture of the whole. Many later argued that this fragmentation deepened the systemic crisis of the 1970s and 1980s. OGAS was not unique in exploring computer networks, but it was unmatched in scope. In 1969, the United States launched ARPANET, linking a handful of research computers. It started as a military project for resilient communications, but evolved into the ancestral node of today's Internet. In early 1970s, Chile, President Salvador Allende backed Project CyberSyn, a network of telex machines feeding factory data into a futuristic control room in Santiago. It was an experiment in real-time socialist economic monitoring, cut short by a military coup. In France, Louis Pouzin's Cyclades research network pioneered packet-switched datagrams, shaping the very foundations of modern Internet protocols. Ideas like OGAS, ARPANET, CyberSyn, and Cyclades were part of the same global moment, but only OGAS aimed to manage an entire centrally planned economy at national scale. Some historians now call it the Internet that never was. Others joke with Internet, an unrealized socialist counterpart to the global network that actually emerged. In that alternative timeline, the first true networked superpower might not have been built around Silicon Valley's commercial internet, but around a Soviet grid of planning machines. OGAS was never built, yet its vision was strangely prophetic. Some see faint echoes of OGAS in modern smart city platforms and centralized digital management systems. The dream of managing complexity through data and computation never went away, it just changed form. The story of OGAS is not only about a failed project, it is a case study in how technology and power interact. Even the most brilliant technical design needs the right institutions and political will. Without them, code stays on paper. The Soviet Union had a chance to build a network for socialism, but internal conflicts and fear of losing control blocked it. Today, as we enter the age of artificial intelligence and pervasive digitalization, questions about algorithmic planning and AI-guided economies are resurfacing.